Okay, so now we'll be installing Oracle 11G Express Edition Release 2 version. The first thing first, you open up your favorite web browser and go to oracle.com. So let's say roam around. Or simply you can Google for Oracle 11G Express Edition Release 2. And before say, so once you say Release 2, this is it, Oracle 11G Express Edition. Currently Oracle has provided 18C as Express Edition as well, but we for the education purpose will be using Oracle 11G. So here if you see, download Oracle Database Express Edition, click on it. You might have to register for an Oracle account. Okay, so we have 16C and so on, and somewhere you'll find earlier versions as well. Okay, see, we have prior release archive. Let's go there. And here I find Oracle 11G Express Edition for 64-bit as well as 32-bit and Linux. Right now, for Linux we just have available for 64-bit, and for right now we'll be confirming what type of architecture do we have in our system. For that, let's go to Explorer and confirm our type. Right click on your PC, save properties. And here if you see, I have 64-bit operating system with 64-bit say based processor. That hints me I am supposed to download the 64 this particular file called Windows 64 for the 64-bit architecture. Let's see. Okay, I say reviewed and accept all the agreements, because you know if you don't agree upon these agreements you won't be able to move on. And as I said, you might be redirected to you might be required for an Oracle account, and this is no optional, you have to register for it. So take some time and register. Okay, so ultimately let's say I have program somewhere here, or I directly download it to D drive. I simply download this file to D drive. Just in case if you find 32-bit, so just download 32-bit. It might take for a while depending upon your internet speed. Okay. Now go back to your downloaded location and extract it. So if I see here, I have Oracle must be is 11G, so Windows, I'll extract it at this place. So I'll extract it somewhere to Windows Express Edition. Very good. So here we are, Oracle. Okay, sitting down below. So you'll find a folder called this one. Simply right click, and just for some security reasons, let's not be into trouble, right click and run as administrator. You would also double click it, not a problem, but for safety I would highly recommend running it as administrator. Just because I have very low disk space in C drive, I want this Oracle applications to be installed on D drive. So depending upon your RAM, this step might be faster than what you see here in your case. Okay, let me grab a glass of water. I'll pause for a while. Okay, so here we are. Here we'll have to say click next. Accept the license agreement. Okay, perfect. It is asking me to install the whole application in C drive. I wouldn't, but if you have to, just click next, done. So but I wouldn't, I would say D drive, just because my C drive usually keeps getting corrupted. Fine, so let's say Oracle 11G XE R2, so that I can remember, so that I don't remove that folder accidentally. Okay, it's installed in this folder, just to rename it. So it says D drive Oracle 11G Express Edition list to installed folder is this. This is very important. Mark my words. This is very important. So the sys or the system password, if you forget, it will be very hard for you to recover back. Then you'll have to remember it. So use a password that you can remember it easily. Or if you have been performing lab along with me, if you have been performing DBMS Lab along with me, then I highly recommend you use the same thing as Oracle, O capital O-R-A-C-L-E, O-R-A-C-L-E, so that every student will have the same thing and I'll never be into trouble. Whenever I have to access your database remotely, I'll be able to do that because I remember everybody has the same password for sys user. Look, this is for learning purpose. If it would have been in a development environment, or if it had been for a commercial purpose, I wouldn't recommend the same. For the learning purpose, for my students, I recommend using O-R-A-C-L-E, Oracle as a password, so that even if you need my support, I can access your system using TeamViewer and I can see what is wrong within your system. Having that thing said, let's move forward. Okay, if you like, you can copy it, or if you do not need to, if you can remember everything perfectly, then you don't need to. The default database listener is at 1521. Oracle default listener is 1521, and if you need some web access, it's on 8080. Fine, everything seems good to us. Okay, again, it will take some time, so I'll pause for a while so that we move to the next step. Okay, cross your fingers. It seems things are fine. Now its Oracle service is being created and started at the same time. Whenever you start your Windows, this service will be started along with. If you want to, you can ask Oracle to start on as a manual process instead of being automatically started. But by default, Oracle starts whenever your Windows starts. So it seems our wait is now about to be over. Oh goodness, it's taking longer than the usual time. Possibilities are my system is at bad health. Okay, maybe for the first time it's been configuring the database as well. So see, it's very simple in case of Windows. Click, 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 next, next, done, and we must be sure about the sys and the system password. That's what we need to take more care about. Had it be on Linux, you might have to work so much for preparing the system before installing Oracle. Oh goodness, it's taking too long. So after that process, you will be able to see finish. Click on it, and we are done. Now let's try to verify if everything is perfect. Go to the command prompt, type SQL Plus, say sys as sysdba, and the password is, yes, of course, Oracle. Great, now you might have connected to Oracle service. Let's imagine what might go wrong if I'm not being able to connect. What might go wrong? Let's figure that thing out. For instance, let's say my service or the listener is not running. The service or the listener is not running. So if you have fundamentals of database concepts, then you might see the Oracle service must be here. So right here we have Oracle Service Express Edition XE, and then we have the listener. So listener must be running if you have to communicate using the SQL Plus tool. The listener must be running. Let's try to shut it down. What happens? Let's see. Okay, so the listener has stopped. Now let's find what happens. Let's try the same thing again, because sometimes the listener might corrupt, or the listener is a service might get corrupted with memory. Okay, might have stopped for any reasons. Then how will you figure out what type of problems will you face, and you will be able to understand that my listener is not working. So let's see, SQL Plus again. SQL Plus is a utility, or say client tool, that is provided along with your Oracle database installation. It's a client. So SQL Plus, then you will be asked for a username, say sysdba. There are several ways of logging in. Few moments back I said SQL Plus and sysdba right there, and then I just entered the password. So there are several ways. So enter password. Okay, fine. So listener services will be applicable for network based access. So if you have any applications running that might require database connectivity, for example, let's say we have a SQL Developer, and SQL Developer is trying to connect to instead of SQL Developer, I have DataGrip. There are so many different IDEs, integrated development environments. Among them, the Oracle has released SQL Developer. If you ask my personal preference, I use DataGrip. Okay, so download SQL Developer for Windows 10 64-bit. I highly recommend you use the one with JDK 8 included, so that you won't have any issues of JDK. It's for 64-bit, so I confirm here. So you might be wondering, what are we up to? We're up to the listener service. That is very, very important to know, because sometimes you might have to connect to a remote database. So at that time, your listener service, if the listener service is not on, say program SQL Developer, okay, good to go. So if your listener service is not active, you will not be able to connect with the database. It's something like a pipeline through which connection pools are established with the database. Oh no, why didn't the DataGrip start up? Maybe I did not click it. So be it DataGrip from JetBrains or be it SQL Developer, they all have the same similar type of feature. Or you could use any other tools that is SQL compliant or Oracle compliant. Okay, so bear with me. What happened? What's wrong? It's taking longer than usual. Perfect. Let's extract it. Okay, it seems on the line here, it seems DataGrip is trying to start up. I was thinking maybe there is something wrong with my screen. I was wondering, but it's nothing like that. The DataGrip is trying to start up. You know, these tools are so memory hungry applications. Okay, now if you can see, my DataGrip has started. Here on the left panel, forget whatever you see right now, just ignore. Okay, so let me close all of them. So at some point of time, I had Oracle Express Edition, that is 18C, installed on my machine, but now those connections won't be available, so I'll delete each one of them. Okay, so let's say remove. Perfect. Remove. Fine. Remove. Great. Remember, we have listener service down. We have listener service down, and now we are trying to connect through any tool that has to connect to the Oracle database through the listener service. Let's see. So now I need to connect to, say, Oracle. Forget about it, the update is pending. I want to update it right now. Okay, and let's say the sys user wants to log in. So let's say sys at localhost, just a name to remember that it's a system user. Comment the sys user SSDBA. Okay, the host local machine is termed as localhost. Okay, fine. SID, it has obtained automatically 1521. If you remember, while during the installation, that was the port. Driver, so you could have used OCI, OCI 8. So thin is fine for us. Thin drivers are automatically installed while you are installing say DataGrip. Okay, user is sys as, and the password says Oracle safe forever sys as DVA is the username. Okay, let me verify. Everything is fine here. SSL fine. Schemas not important. Advanced not important. So this would do. Now look at the error message that we get. You see that the connection was reviewed and connect and so on. Let's try again. Here, this is the exact error. The network adapter could not establish the connection. So if you see something like that, you should imagine or you should guess that my listener service has shut down. Let's start the listener service. Now it has started. Let's try to connect again. Oh, maybe now I don't have the password, so it might come up with some other type of errors. Listener refused the connection with the following: this must did not currently stored SID and blah blah blah. Okay, SID is express edition, that is fine. So I have just changed to service name. The service name is called Express Edition. User has to be sys Oracle if you can see back the scene is trying to perform the database connection, and it says the specified database user password combination is rejected. If you remember, I just said as sysdba, and then the password is, now let's try. Okay. So if you see, once everything is correct, we have sys as sysdba and the password is Oracle, and once the installation and expression has been connected. Okay, so we'll get this information. Okay, so now we have been connected with the Oracle database. Just in case, if you have to get confirmation, you could use SQL statements over here to see, to check the current user. You could say select user from dual, control enter, and see if the information is the user is sys user has logged in. If you want to verify, we say select, and then we have sysdat from dual. Actually dual is, so dual is a temporary view. This is our system date. Currently this is my server. If you can see clearly, it's 2nd of October 2020 and 7:52 has been subjected to this particular format. Well, so this confirms that our tool has been connected with Oracle database. If I go back and if I say hit stop, okay, and now if I say dual, let me see what do I get. I still get the same information. I say hit enter, I still get the same information. The reason is, once you get connected with the database, everything else is bypassed. Now the listener service is bypassed. So that if I reconnect it, and it will be only used well reconnecting it. For example, if I stop this service, let's say disconnect, Okay, it says unexpected error. You might have guessed it has to be the listener. Okay, so now if you see control enter, and if I try to execute, no, see, it is taking longer than enough time to respond back. Look at the error messages down below. It's trying to perform the database connection but won't be able to do that. Reason, our listener has stopped, and here it is. Well, so if you find such type of error messages, just go back, confirm whether your listener has stopped or not. Okay, this was all about the listener. Now what about the service? Let's stop it. What if my service has stopped? Then even though you'll be able to say connect okay, so can you see that listener refused the connection with the following error? Of course, the database has not been started. So since the database is not starting, how would the listener service try to communicate with that particular database? Okay, so that is the core part. The DBMS itself has not started. Okay, so these are all debugging issues that you might be facing in day-to-day life. Maybe do not try to install two Express editions like Oracle 11G Express edition and Oracle 18C Express edition on the same machine before completely uninstalling the earlier one. Okay, because Express editions you won't be able to install parallelly. Having said that, these things, let me confirm. Okay, so that was the tool for DataGrip. This is how DataGrip works. I'll say update. Okay, update and restart. The service will restart. No problem. For the timing, I'll show you SQL Developer as well. How does SQL Developer work? Because now and onwards in the lab, during the lab sessions, either we'll be using SQL Plus for Oracle Lab Performance, or we will be using SQL Developer. Later on, when you are into the industry, you might prefer to use DataGrip or any other tool that is preferred within the organization. So this is it. It's a no install file. You don't have to install it. You simply extract and directly execute it. I'll pause for a while and I'll resume when it's done. Okay, so since the SQL Developer has already been extracted, let's go to SQL Developer. Here we are. Let's run this. since we have already downloaded the JDK file along with it, it will be helpful. So I recommend the fresh installers, the students, to download along with the JDK. And if you are sure that your JDK is already installed and it's been configured, the class paths and environment variables are set properly, you don't need to use JDK. I'll pause for a while. It's again taking some long time, so that won't be a problem. Allowing automatic usage reporting to Oracle, that won't be a problem for us. Okay. Since it's a first time launch, it might take some elongated period of time. Let's get acquainted with the interface here, because these are the things that will not be explaining in the class. How did we install Oracle, or how did we install, say, SQL Developer? That will be out of the scope of our class activity. Okay. Fine. So having your application updated is always advantageous. See, the database has already detected that we have Oracle 11G Express Release 2, and then we have admin over the network and admin. That particular, we have a TNS file over there, and that particular TNS file can be used for connectivity. Or instead, you could use create connection manually, however you want. So I would rather recommend going to plus icon, let's say I'm a sys user, just to understand the connectivity is a sys user. Database type is the Oracle. Okay, username, prefer having capital letter, role as DBA, password Oracle, and I want to save password so that later on whenever I get connected to the service, it's SID instead of SID says service name, it's XE. Okay, it's XE. Test. Perfect. If you can see, we have success right here. So if you can see, so we have success right here. Let's connect. You might have guessed what is data modeler used for: preparing relational model and preparing ER diagrams. Then you have Oracle Live SQL. If you don't want to install Oracle, or if you don't have a proper machine, proper dedicated machine over there, then you could use Oracle Live SQL as well. Again, so we have an interface. So you could go to Windows, Tools and Preferences. Sorry, you could go to Tools and Preferences. For me, we have fonts, and I prefer to be using 18 or say 20 so that students can easily see. Okay, the same thing to view the current user. We say select user from dual. If you have to execute, you could select it and say execute. Since the sys user has logged in, the information says sys. To view the server date, we say select sysdate from dual. And look at the advantage of this tool. If you select both of these statements and say hit enter, one after another, both of them will get executed. So you might not have seen, actually we have two results. One is sys, the other one is sysdate. Okay, let's remove it. Fine. Now let's execute. Do you see that? For one of them we have one result, for the other we have another result at this place. So having different statements will be used in this way. If you want both of the things on the same line, then you could say sys, I want the user and sysdate parallelly from dual. So here it is. So in the same tab you could see user as well as the sysdate, and there would be a lot more information that we will talk about. For the time being, we have got to know what is SQL Developer, how to connect using the SQL Developer with the Oracle database, and this is the login of sys user. I highly recommend to not use sys user for every day-to-day purpose. So it's better that you create a new user and try to give DBA privileges to that user and perform other operations in the database. Thank you everyone. So in case if you have any queries, you can always put them inside the classroom. I'll put these videos in the classroom itself, and if you have any queries, you can always put them. No, I don't want to save it. Thank you. Happy learning.